Hello and welcome to Rock, Paper, Shotgun. This is Noah, and if I sound a little slower today, it's because I've been playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, a game so overstuffed with ideas, landmass and collectible gubbins that I'm having a hard time chewing it into manageable pieces. Ubisoft pack it in like the gaming equivalent of a Christmas turkey. So I've stepped away from the PC, found myself a comfy chair, and I'm trying to digest what I've played. On paper, it sounds harmless enough. It's the 11th mainline entry, and who expects any surprises come the 11th version of anything? It dunks you in ancient Greece during the war between Athens and Sparta. You play Mercenary, Cassandra, or Alexios as he or she assassinates their way through both armies, trying to get close to the truth of their bloodline. More importantly, they kick people. Really, really hard. So, I'm going to try and break the game down into what makes it masterfully messy. I'll avoid story spoilers, although, spoiler alert, you'll see some more people get kicked really, really hard. Speaking of Spartan kicks, if you'd rather not see the nasty end of our boot, why not consider subscribing to Rock, Paper, Shotgun? That was kind of threatening, wasn't it? I'm not going to boot you off a cliff if you don't, but I might just be thinking about it. And if you enjoy the video, please do give it a thumbs up. I can't guarantee it will appease Zeus, but it will certainly make us happy. If you watched my early impressions video, you'll know that Odyssey doesn't reinvent the Assassin's Creed wheel. But that's okay, because the ancient Greeks were all about taking pre-existing wheels and working them into new inventions, like watermills and alarm clocks. Thank you, Wikipedia, for that. What Ubisoft Quebec are actually doing here is dressing up older ideas, sort of cosplaying as other games to see what works. If Origins was sand surfing in loot-filled Destiny pants, Odyssey is climbing nuddy statues in BioWare shoes. It's not just the conversations and consequences that remind me of my Mass Effect adventures, it's as much about world building and finding ways to make Ubisoft's usual quest clutter fit into the setting. So yes, you're still completing bounties and side quests, hunting for hidden treasures and loot, and seeking out hidden nooks and crannies, but in a way that doesn't chafe. The best example of this early in the game is when you must worm your way closer to the Wolf of Sparta. You have to complete some busy work first, to prove you're an ally of Sparta. And to do this, you have to weaken the Athenian army by destroying their supplies, stealing their treasures, assassinating their figureheads, or writing unpleasant gossip about them on toilet doors. Okay, that last one's a fib, but you know Cassandra would be good at it. She's fierce. None of this is new, but it fits the context of your mercenary career. There's repetition in it, sure, but it's justified by your job and the endless churn of war. You have to prove fealty any way you can. This is several thousand years before the world's best boss mug was invented, so you have to slum it a bit to earn the attention of an employer. After you've done your bit, you're still a lone mercenary, or misthios, following his or her story without loyalty to either side. When people liken Odyssey to The Witcher 3, I think it's this sense of purpose that they're recognizing. Geralt cleans the map of monster nests and bounties because that's how he pays the bills. It makes just as much sense here. As well as the game grounds familiar ideas, there's still a hell of a lot of them to deal with. I should say up front, I don't normally do well when presented with choice. This is the person who became so overwhelmed the first time she played Skyrim, she chopped wood in Whiterun until she could afford a house. I wish I was joking. And here, the range of things to do is staggering. Visit message boards and you'll find timed bounties to hunt down like a real mercenary. There are military forts and leaders' homes to break into and remove all treasures and all life. You free captives, burn stocks, or murder generals, priests, and other middle management. All this for XP, money, or the giddy thrill of poking people with pointy things from inside a bush. These lead to bigger battles for Sparta, or Athens, where your loyalty is bought with loot, because our only true loyalty is to the random number generator. Raise too much hell by, say, unleashing bears and lions on people, and bounty hunters will beset you like crows on a corpse. But you can't give me a bear and not expect me to unleash it. Hunters can be solved with cold-blooded murder, slightly more warm-blooded bribing, or the magma-hot blood explosion that is kicking them off a cliff. Master these encounters and there are further webs of intrigue to dig into. Sniffing it all out could last for months. From all this you gain gear that ranges in specialness. Even with a simpler range of items to collect than before, Origin's multiple bow classes are replaced with one class with multiple shot types. There's mountains of loot to hoover up. I know it's designed to trap you in an addictive loop, but it works. The tile colours alone make me drool, and with names like Epic Artemis Gauntlets, I have to say it's enticing, even if I do feel dirty saying it. I'll also say that I'm not feeling the grind that some mentioned under my earlier video. Maybe it's because I've been digging into the side distractions and taking my time, but I've not found myself butting heads with the level gating in the main campaign, I've certainly not felt the need to buy XP boosters or the like. Perhaps people hungry to charge through the story are finding it more of an uphill climb, but that doesn't reflect my experience. To return to my point about feeling panicked by choice, I'm surprised by how well I can deal with Odyssey's sprawl. I actually find it so oversaturated with stuff to do that I've become super aware of what missions entail and whether I see value in that. Rather than ticking items on a checklist, I'm engaged, rather than half-heartedly clearing icons off the map. It strikes me that the greatest freedom in the game is the ability to embrace or ignore as much of it as you want. All these activities are laid out on the table for you, a bit like pick and mix suites. Seeing it all would be an undertaking, so you choose your own adventure, again similar to how The Witcher 3 lets you roam and poke at the world as you wish. It's a tricky balance to get right. Try to please everyone and you often wind up pleasing no one. One game that got it very right recently was Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which, torn between old fans and new fans, concocted a difficulty system that let you scale puzzles or platforming individually, honing the game to your tastes. Odyssey's biggest step in this direction is exploration mode, which turns off some of the guiding markers for a more touchy-feely approach to finding points of interest. It's easy to become a slave to mini-maps in many games, missing all the incredible world design because your eyes are fixed on a blue line on a map in the bottom corner. Odyssey's exploration setting gives you roundabout directions for a quest, getting more or less specific depending on how much information you ask for. I love the sense of intrigue that such a tiny interface tweak can add. In the Temple of Odysseus, for example, I found a tablet telling me to travel north of where Odysseus once stood, to a goat farm where I'd find something ancient. Hopefully not Greece's oldest goat. That would be an anticlimax. It was vague and far away, but I felt compelled to go and look. Why? Because A, I was curious, and B, the map is so beautiful and filled with danger, secrets and excitement, I knew the trip would be eventful even if it did end with a manky old goat, which it did. But when you're challenged to broadly go and see, you're free to discover, sometimes on the way, and always to ends you don't expect. Okay, so it still spells a lot of this stuff out. Ubisoft aren't trying to baffle the 99% of players who haven't held an Ordnance Survey map, but it's refreshing to see them try to make you connect with the landscape and map beyond a sea of icons. One of the dangers of building a world as big as Odyssey's is that getting around can easily become a chore, and you find yourself desperately looking for the next eagle viewpoint, and the fast travel that unlocks with it. Odyssey gives you a bird, a horse, and a ship, which sounds like either the setup for a good joke or an even better Professor Layton puzzle. But between the three, and your own human legs, the game finds a really nice mix of pace and scale. I'll return to my pick and mix analogy again. If side activities are the sweets on display, travel is the giant scoop that brings them together. Or maybe I should just drop this terrible sweets analogy and admit to myself that I've got a candy problem. For starters, there's a wonderful sense of ease in switching between riding Phobos, your horse, and looking through the eyes of your bird, Icaros. On your weirdly indestructible horse, you have the option to trot manually or set it on the ancient Greek version of GPS and go on autopilot. The latter isn't dumbing down, but freeing your thumb to spin the camera and drink in the world as a proper tourist. Switch into the overhead view through Icaros, and you switch from tourist to aerial photographer, seeing the proper lay of the land, and getting a sense of architectural scale that holidaymakers can only dream of. Put both animals aside, and hop onto the roads yourself, and the scale zooms right in, letting you get up close and personal with all those ludicrously tiny details that only a development team of 1 billion people could possibly produce. This is a world built as much to be looked at as used for bloody combat, and it's really interesting how every practical bit of travel doubles as a new way to see it. And you don't even have to insert pennies like one of those tourist spot telescopes. And let's not forget about the giant wooden horse of the sea, or a ship, as humans call it. The Adrestia plays with scale even further, pulling us back from the islands to the wider sea. But the ship is almost a game unto itself, taking the core ideas first seen in Assassin's Creed Black Flag and fleshing them out to make the ship feel more like yours. Once you're able to command more than a little tugboat, you have a whole host of options to pimp your ride. From cosmetic changes such as ship skins and crew skins that I personally don't care about at all, but hey, if you do, now you know they're there, to boosting up your arrow or javelin strength or adding fire to the offensive mix. You can't chuck buckets of sick, as in Sea of Thieves, but otherwise it's quite comprehensive. My favourite addition is employing lieutenants for your crew. Well, I say employ, the process is more like finding someone impressive on land and then kicking them unconscious. Hey, it's how Rock Paper Shotgun recruited the video team, so don't knock it. New crew brings stat boosts, bumping up attack or defense for example. I got a little obsessed with this. Recruiting feels like lucky dip. You can scan people with Icaros to get the general quality of their character, but what skills they bring to the ship seems to be pot luck. I like the excitement of what you're going to get from a recruit, but I also like the idea that a bird can recognize people's naval potential. Honestly, I'd probably be happy just sailing about with the wind in my hair and the salt in the air. That's pretty poetic even for me. A special mention for how sound is used in these moments. The roar of voices as you course through a storm. Ropes dragging on the deck, oars crashing into the water. It's an auditory feast, I tell you. But what's the point in any of this if there's no reason to continue the story? Thankfully, Ubisoft has made big strides. Odyssey's story is interesting, funny, and not unlike a Greek legend complete with war, gruesome murder, intrigue, betrayal, and love, of course. Frankly, I'm surprised at how invested I am in it. Maybe it's Cassandra and Melisanthe Mahout's impeccable voice work. She does do a lot of dramatic, not to mention comedic, heavy lifting in her version of the story. I went on far too long about her performance in my last video, but I likened the character to Femshep and I stick by that comparison. Cassandra alone, as a character, is worth the price of admission. It could also be down to dialogue trees. A first for Assassin's Creed. I've made many decisions, some of them cutthroat, and nattered about topics large and small. Some interchanges are hilarious, others touching, and some downright uncomfortable, but all weave a tale that is endlessly entertaining, and with enough input to feel like it's yours. For example, I was able to choose whether or not I invited a certain person into my team, but decided against it. I'm assuming that's an entire aspect of the story I'm missing, and as people warned me in the comments in my last video, a decision I made early on in a ruined village did indeed bite me in the bottom further down the line. Not so much that it ruined everything, but it added texture to an important exchange. As someone who's normally quite paragon, I've enjoyed the free rein Odyssey gives to morality. Maybe it's the setting. Greek gods were less high and mighty and more human, petty flaws and all. The game also boasts flashbacks, historical and otherwise, that are frankly gorgeous. Surreal, sumptuously realised, and stunning, giving the story the kind of weight I hadn't anticipated. However, and I feel I should yell this from a cliff top, I don't care about Abstergo, the Animus, or that framing of the story. To put it bluntly, I can remember the name of every character I interact with in ancient Greece without speaking a word of Greek or knowing anything about the history, but I still can't remember who this is. I'd be happy if I never saw anything like this again in Assassin's Creed. It's easily ignored in Odyssey, but still, I wish Ubisoft Quebec would toss it overboard already. They could cover up the crime behind the noise of rowdy Greek sea shanties. So like I said, there's quite a lot to chew over here. Odyssey is a tough game to strip down into basic parts because it's huge, and there are many interlocking parts to unpick and investigate. And it's not something I'm trying to rush because, for all its grand history and scale, it's also a great place to mess around in. It's nonsensical in a way only a game can be. Outside of the Abstergo snore, stealth is easy to exploit as you run circles around dumb AI. Not a criticism, it's fun to unleash the might of a highly trained killer on a less than trained dunce. And I'm never quite sure Phobos is entirely all there, as he leaps into weird positions or clops into the path of snarling wolves. And of course you have those giant nutty statues. It's a world where the sublime rubs shoulders with the ridiculous. I'm not sure it all adds up, but it doesn't matter when you're having this much fun. And it's the most fun I've had with the series since Brotherhood and Black Flag. And for someone who was beginning to give up on Assassin's Creed, Odyssey has been an Olympian-sized surprise. Of course, if you want to surprise us on an Olympian level, please do write something in the comments below. I'd love to hear your experiences with the game, good, bad, and weird. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do subscribe for more like it. Rock Paper Shotgun covers all things PC gaming related, from Let's Plays, where we accidentally burn sheep, to in-depth analysis on the shiniest new games of the day. Thank you for watching, and we will see you again soon. Goodbye for now.